Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
How's it going, everyone? Let's go ahead and jump into our hot takes. First hot take, Shohei Ohtani. Man, there's no way you're that close to the situation and you did not know what's going on. Even if it's just the illegal gambling and you did not bet on baseball, you will be suspended. You cannot do illegal gambling. All the other sports have rules and they've been cracking down recently. And Major League Baseball has to send a message. It won't be the lifetime ban, but it will be something to send the message to other players, because if they let their star walk and skate, it just will open up a huge can of worms. So, Shohei, you will be suspended. Next, U.S. men's national soccer. Yes, you got the win against Mexico. Yes, you looked a lot better than you did against Jamaica. But with Greg as your coach, he needs to be fired. Your team is capped. He just doesn't have the tactical skills. Your set pieces, as we saw in the World Cup, just the U.S. on talent alone should be competing in the next World Cup for semis, and that'd be the farthest they ever made it. And with Greg as their coach, it's just, I couldn't understand why they brought him back, but Greg, you got to go. Finally, UConn will win March Madness and repeat. And further, the Big East is showing out. Again, I am a homer with going to St. John's, and this just kind of proves that the Big East deserved more bids. The major conference teams that got in are all just doing terrible whenever they should have probably not gotten in. I got it. They're bigger name recognition and stuff like that. But if you want the best product, you need to be putting in the best teams. And those are your hot takes. Take it away, Jordan.
I got your Eddie Mush, your Jordan Tennis hot takes for this episode of the Degenerate Gambling Life. First off, we're going to start with women's NCAA March Madness, and the winners will not be Caitlin Clark in Iowa. They're going to fall short once again. They fell short last year in the championship. I think they will get back to the championship this year, but once again, they're not going to have anything to show for it. Next up, we're hopping to the MLB, where the big news has been Shohei Ohtani and the possible betting scandal, and his interpreter's involved. His interpreter is one of his best friends. Nothing's going to happen to Shohei Ohtani outside of maybe some fines are going to happen, but eventually the investigation is going to show that Shohei Ohtani had nothing to do with it. It was all his friend, his interpreter, who was making these bets, and Shohei, hey, he was just trying to be a good guy and bail out his longtime friend. So nothing's going to happen to Shohei Ohtani, because like I said, he is the poster boy for the MLB right now and the best player. And last but not least, I'm just going to give you a quick one. I know this is going to be kind of a long one as far as time period that this is going to take place, but Chelsea, they will be back in a Champions League final within 5 years. The team, they're not playing well right now, but the young talent is there and they will start meshing.
Thanks, Jordan, and here's my hot takes for the week. Shohei Ohtani embodies the degenerate gambling life. Hey guys, he's one of us. Ohtani, though, clearly is a better baseball player, and at this point in time, he's actually the best player in the world, but he's definitely not the best gambler in baseball. It's reported that he or his interpreter racked up over $4 million in gambling debt at an illegal bookie in California. Although it is reported right now that he did not gamble on baseball, which we can only hope is true, because if he did, he will likely be banned for life like Pete Rose was in the past. Hopefully Ohtani did not gamble on baseball and that he can return this season to his great career and continue putting up monster numbers at a record pace. Sticking with baseball, Juan Soto will win the MVP this season. Soto has the best eye in baseball. He walks more than anyone, and he's a shoo-in to have a 400-plus OPS. I also think he'll have at least a 900 OPS and probably over 1,000 OPS this season. As a left-handed hitter in the Yankees offense, he can very easily hit 50 home runs or more. His defense has held him back from winning MVP in the past, but I think in the New York market, if he puts up a huge offensive season and the Yankees do well, that he has a very good chance of being the MVP. Moving on to football, I think that the Jets will win the AFC East for the first time in 22 years this season. That's right, it's been since 2002 that the Jets have won a division title, but the stars seem to be aligning for them on offense. They picked up Mike Williams, and I think if they can pick up Brock Bowers in the draft, they're going to have one of the most elite offenses in football, a very balanced attack behind Breece Hall and Aaron Rodgers. They have one of the best defenses already, and it's only getting better, and their rivals are regressing a little bit. If you look, the Dolphins lost some good players in Christian Wilkins, and their team is kind of starting to deteriorate a little bit. They're still good, but they're not as good as they were. And the Bills have a lot of drama going on, like always. It seems like Stephon Diggs is creating drama that doesn't need to be created, and who knows if the Bills are still going to be able to compete at that same level. Their window is definitely closing. So I think this is going to be the year that the Jets get over the hump and win the AFC East.
Okay, we're going to talk a little fantasy football. We know you guys are wanting it. So what we're going to do is a little pros versus cons. One person will take one side, another person will take the other. Our first player up will be Saquon Barkley and him going to the Eagles. I'm against it, mainly tush push. It limits his upside. The O-line has been downgraded. Kelsey retired. And finally, at best, he's going to be the fourth receiving option on that team. So I'm voting no on Saquon.
Look, Josh, I'm hearing what you're saying, but the facts are that Saquon Barkley is finally going to be playing behind an elite offensive line and with a top quarterback. That means defenses aren't going to be able to stack the box to stop Barkley, and we know that if Barkley gets an open space, he's absolutely electric. He should also be amazing in the passing game, and I think he could lead the league in big plays. He's going to be a yardage machine, and the touchdowns will come, so look for Barkley to dominate in fantasy football this season. Javon Baker is a wide receiver prospect that I really like in the NFL draft. Last season, he had great production at UCF. He has solid size and solid speed, although not game-changing speed by any means for the NFL level. But when you watch him on tape, the first thing that stands out are his amazing hands and his ability to contort his body to make insane catches. He also has great route running ability and knows how to get open in zones and find the holes where he can sit down and make good plays. Overall, I think Baker is a very good receiving prospect that could develop into an elite number 2 wide receiver for an NFL team. He just doesn't quite have that game-changing speed, but his route running and hands make up for it. Keon Coleman is a solid receiving prospect for the 2024 NFL Draft. Although he ran a slow 40 time at the Combine, he does have great size and ability to get yardage after the catch. He's also very good at blocking, which could get him playing time very early on. He's a very good route runner and can separate easily from his defenders. His hands aren't the best in contested catch situations, and sometimes he doesn't give 100% effort on all his routes, so those are some negatives that he needs to work on at the next level. I think if he lives up to his full potential, he could be a great number 1 wide receiver at the NFL level, and if he doesn't, he could bust out of the league. So he's definitely a boomer bust prospect, and I would take him in the late second or early third round of the NFL draft. Xavier Worthy of Texas is a very good prospect as well. He's the fastest player ever timed in the 40-yard dash in NFL history, and he clearly has game-breaking speed that can take the top off of defenses. When this guy gets a free release off the line, he is unguardable, and he's also a solid route runner and knows how to get himself open in the intermediate and short passing game as well. He does struggle to get a good release for solid cornerbacks in press coverage, and his run blocking does need work. Overall, though, I think Worthy has potential to be an elite deep threat and a good receiver in the NFL. If he goes to a team like the Chiefs, I think he's going to be very scary. This is a poker hand I played at TCH in Austin, Texas. In this hand, the straddle was on, so we were playing 1-2-5. One player limped in middle position, and I raised to $25 with Queen 10 offsuit on the button. The small blind, big blind, straddle, and limper calls. And now the flop comes gin for us. It comes Jack 10-10. But now the small blind bets 125, and this player does take big sizings a lot of the times with hands he shouldn't, so he definitely doesn't have to have a nutted hand here. The straddle calls, which is concerning, but also he knows that the small blind could be out of line here, and since he's in the straddle, he could have a lot of worse 10s that thought they were getting a price and called preflop all the way down to like 10-6 suited, 10-7 suited, 10-8 suited, 10-9 suited. You get the point. So at this point, I only have 244 in my stack, so my options are either to fold or go all in. I think going all in is slightly better since the pot is now bloated, and I'll be good here probably 30 to 40% of the time. The small blind folds and the straddle snap calls, and we lose to Jack 10. Maybe we could have gotten away. Let me know in the comments what you would have done.
Okay, we are playing 1-2 at WinStar. 6 people limped me in the big blind. I look down at 10 deuce of spades, so I check and we're going super multi-way to a flop. The flop is the ace of spades, the 10 of diamonds, and 10 of clubs. The small blind bets 25. I want to see where I'm at. It's so multi-way with no kicker, so I raise to 87, and it folds back to the small blind who calls. At this point, I'm going to shut it down because I'm pretty sure she has a 10. Turn is the two of hearts. We're loving it. The small blind now leads for $100, and I raise to $287. She thinks about it, but she does make the call. The river's the queen of diamonds, and she almost jumps out of her chair to put her last $40 in. You make the call, and she shows queen 10 off suit. I was putting her on it, and especially when she jumped out of her chair, would you have folded there? It's $40 to win over 800. I think you just have to make the call. If she did spike her outs to make it, but what would you do in that position? Let me know in the comments. Okay, we are still playing 1-2 at WinStar. I'm in middle position. It folds to me, and I look down at King Jack of Hearts. I make it $8. The low jack calls. Now the hijack, who's been pretty tight, 3 bets at 35. The small blind calls. I call, and the low jack. We go to a flop. Ace of Hearts, Queen of Spades, 10 of diamonds. Now I donk bet out for 48 because someone should have connected, and I have the nuts. And the low jack folds. The hijack and the small blind call. The turn is a 10 of spades. I'm hating it, so I check, and it checks to the hijack, who now leads for $50. The small blind, and I call. The river's a 7 of spades. The small blind now leads for 125. I fold because now I'm a believer that someone has it. The hijack no goes all in. The small blind almost snap calls. The small blind shows ace jack for the of spades for the flush, and the hijack shows pocket queens for the boat, and they scoop the whole thing. I think I could have folded on the turn whenever the board pairs with the 10 of spades because so many boats get there. I think that's a bad call for the $50. Tell me what you guys would have done. If you haven't yet, please take this time to comment, like, and subscribe.
Welcome to Miller Time. I'm Kevin Miller with The Degenerate Gambling Life, and on today's episode of Miller Time, I am going to teach you all how to become a profitable, small stakes, no limit hold'em player. First, you need to stop open limping into pots. When I see players consistently open limping at a table, to me, they're my number one target because I know they're a weak player that doesn't know how to play poker. They don't have any advanced strategy. They just see a hand they think is good enough to see a flop with, and they don't even know what that means. They see a hand they like, they're too afraid to play correctly and raise or fold, so they take the middle road, the least profitable decision, and they limp over and over again. So we need to cut out open limping. Yes, some people open limp to trap, but it's not the most effective way to make a bunch of money with a big hand, and a lot of the time you end up hurting yourself by letting too many players get into a pot for cheap, and then you're emotionally invested in a hand and you donk off a bunch of money when it's obvious you got outflopped. Second, study opening raising charts and 3-bet charts. You need to be the player at your table who is 3-betting the most, and if you're not, odds are you're not profiting as much as you could be, and you're probably not profiting at all. Because at low stakes poker games, and I'm talking 1-2 no limit, 1-3 no limit, and 2-5 no limit specifically, so you're buying in for anywhere from 200 to 500 on average in these games. And if you're not 3-betting in these games, then you're probably outclassed, you're probably making a ton of mistakes. And the hands I'd be looking to 3-bet with are obviously the premium hands. I don't need to discuss those, but the other ones would be suited connectors like 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, 7-6 suited, and then other hands like Ace-X suited, which are too weak to call raises with preflop, but make for excellent 3-betting hands where you can take control and win the pot post-flop. So start 3-betting more. And finally, my last tip for you to become a profiting player at small stakes poker is to stop paying off obvious value bets from nits. Now what I mean by this is there's a certain type of player who plays very passively, does a lot of checking and calling when they're weak, and then out of the woodwork they start betting on a random hand. Maybe they limped. Once this player starts betting or raising, you need to get out of the way with anything besides the nuts or a nutted draw. All these marginal one pair, top kicker hands, you're going to be up against a lot of over pairs, two pairs, and sets, and you're just going to be drawing dead and putting in money bad over and over again. So stop paying off nits. So to do a quick recap, the 3 things that can instantly make you a profiting player, if you're not already, is stop open limping, start 3-betting more pre-flop, and stop paying off nits. Do those 3 things and you will see your win rate skyrocket, regardless of your actual skill level. Those are my tips. I hope you enjoy them. Make sure you guys do us all a favor at the Degenerate Gambling Life and hit that like and subscribe button for us. We really appreciate it. We'll be pumping out new content every week for you guys. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you want to hear, and we will give it to you. Until next time, I'm Kevin Miller, and I'm out.
Soccer hooligans.
Welcome to this edition of the Degenerate Gambling Life's Added Minutes with Jordan Tennis. This edition is going to be all about the Concacaf Nations League final between the USA and Mexico. And how did these 2 teams get here? Well, the USA played a thriller of a semifinal against Jamaica. Jamaica came out, boom, immediately, first minute, scored a goal. We had to wait 95 minutes, I think it was, for the USA to tie it up. Not only did the USA not score, but Jamaica scored an own goal to send that one into extra time, where the USA would then put in 2 goals to win that one 3-1. Mexico booked their spot in the finals when they dispatched Panama 3-0. Easy win for them. On to the finals on Sunday night. USA was completely dominant in the first half with roughly 60% of the possession, but they really had nothing to show for it until the 45th minute when Tyler Adams from about 35 yards out hit an absolute cannon right before the break of halftime to put USA up 1-0. Mexico tightened things up in the second half, but they just could not break through. They had their chances, but they couldn't make anything happen. And then for the USA, in the 63rd minute, Christian Pulisic made a wonderful play on the end line to skip by the defender. He put in a cross, which seemed like Mexico dealt with it for the time being, but they just couldn't get it out of their box. And here comes Gio Reyna with a snapshot. Ochoa couldn't see it. Doesn't matter. Ball's in the back of the net. USA is up 2-0. Fast forward to the 72nd minute when Mexico appears to have earned a penalty kick. I say appears because the ref originally called penalty, but then VAR said, hey, back it up a minute. We need you to come take a look at this on the monitor. The ref goes over. You can clearly see that the USA defender makes no contact with the Mexican player. I don't want to call it a flat-out dive because he did have to avoid some contact, but the contact wasn't there. No penalty given. USA goes on to win another 2-0. This is their 3rd time winning the CONCACAF Nations League, and this is only the 3rd time this tournament has been played, meaning the USA has won 3 times, all 3 times. No other team has won this tournament. We had Turner was the goalie of the tournament, and the player of the tournament was Giovanni Reyna, who's back in the United States men's national team fold after all the drama that happened between his parents and Greg Berhalter. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the Added Minutes.
Little fancy basketball. We're into the semifinals. All 3 of my teams made it. Just remember that if you're behind with 2 or 3 games to go, you need to be looking at what you can do to get those categories. If you have a person that's only playing 1 game, look to see if you can turn that for someone that's going to play 2 games. Obviously the bottom of your bench players, but that's the best you can do. And hopefully you make it into the championship. Now talking a little bit about regular basketball, the Suns. They lost today to the Spurs. I get it. Spurs are young and up and coming. I like the Spurs. I've actually picked them, to do really well and a lot of different picks I've had. But man, the Suns, if you're wanting to go far this season, you had to beat the Spurs. These are teams you have to beat to make it to the playoffs. This just kind of shows why you can't just throw a big three of talent together and hope. It's the same thing that happened with Kevin Durant with the Nets, and it's happening again with the Suns. Um, I hope they figure it out or they trade away whoever they need to gel together. But again, this is why you can't just throw talent together. The pieces need to work. All right, stop that digression. Let's jump into fantasy baseball. First off, we had our draft and it was a great time. 14 teams, and I hope we have a great season. We'll be doing recaps and talking about different things throughout. But let's jump into two players that, whenever the season starts, for you to keep your mind on, and they're both drafted. They're both going to be Texas Rangers. The first one is Evan Carter, outfielder, Texas Ranger. He's a great prospect, but what I like so much about him is he's a contact hitter with easy 2020 upside. He did it in September, which is kind of questionable. He did it in the postseason, facing each team's best. And he shouldn't have prolonged slumps because he's a compact hitter. He doesn't try to hit for power. He just takes what comes to him. He works the counts. And so I think Evan Carter is better for this year upside fantasy player. Next, we got Langford, the uber prospect that everyone's loving. The hype is just huge on him. And, I can understand why. He looks like he could be the next Pujols or Trout or someone like that. But even though he's crushed at every single level, just remember he's a power hitter. Power hitters that come up do tend to struggle. All right. Mike Trout, his first year, batted 220 and got sent back down. So when people drop Langford in May and June because, they're just souring on him, that's whenever I'm probably looking to add him. Okay. After the All Star break, if he's available and he's in a slump, definitely scoop him up because he does look like the type of player that will put it together. If you're in Dynasty Baseball and he's slumping like that, definitely look to trade when someone is souring on him. Keep those tips in mind. All right, so best of luck to all you guys in fantasy basketball in the playoffs and fantasy baseball as it's about to start. Finally, we're going to talk about our meetup game. Shreveport. It's coming up quickly. The weekend of April 5th through the 7th, right after Easter, we're going to have a meetup game at the Horseshoe Casino, April 6th at 1 p.m. Come out, say hi, get some free merch. We're going to have hats, different shirts, hoodies. Come talk whatever sports you'd like to, fantasy. We'll discuss just about anything you want with us. And if you want to play poker, we'll be gambling, playing table games and poker the whole weekend. So come up and say hi and hope to see you guys there. Again, if you haven't yet, please like, comment, and subscribe. And for those of you that watch the whole thing, we really appreciate you guys making it to the end. Thank you.